Planet Maturity Part 1, the Sun. In Vedic astrology, each planet has a specific age when it fully matures in a person's life. And when we talk about planetary maturity, we're not just talking about when a planet starts working. We're talking about when it stabilizes its results, becomes fully expressive, and starts delivering the karmic flavor it holds in the birth chart. Let's begin this journey with the king of the grahas, the sun. The sun matures at 22 years of age. Now think about what this age typically looks like in real life. It's the stage when a person begins stepping into adulthood, forming their identity, perhaps starting a career or making decisions that shape who they are. And that's exactly what the sun governs: identity, purpose, self-worth, and authority. Until age 22, the sun in a person's chart may express itself in a more raw or unsteady way. For example, someone with sun in the 10th house may feel ambitious early on, but might struggle to assert themselves properly in professional settings. But after 22, that confidence begins to crystallize. They start owning their ambition, seeking visibility, and stepping into positions of leadership. The 10th house sun matures into someone who can take on responsibility and command respect. Now, if the sun is in the 4th house, the house of emotional foundations and home, the story is different. Before 22, the person may feel emotionally insecure or may struggle to find a sense of inner stability. But post-maturity, they begin to anchor their self-worth in their emotional integrity. The sun there makes them realize, I shine when I'm emotionally aligned and when my roots are strong. Another classic case, the sun in the 1st house. Before 22, this person might come across as overconfident or attention-seeking. But once the sun matures, they evolve into someone with a strong sense of self. Someone who doesn't just seek attention, but earns it through their presence, authority, and clarity of purpose. Even the sign the sun is in matters here. A Leo sun, for instance, may find it easier to reach that maturity early on because it's in its own sign. It knows how to shine. But if the sun is in Libra, its debilitation might delay the confidence-building journey. It may take longer, even past 22, to really own the inner leadership qualities. What you'll notice is that the sun's maturity often reflects that moment in a person's life when they stop trying to impress others and begin living from a place of inner purpose. That's why 22 can be such a defining point. It's when your inner sun stops rising and begins shining. This is especially useful in career guidance or life coaching. If you're reading a chart for someone younger than 22, keep in mind that their self-expression and sense of life direction is still under construction. Their sun hasn't yet settled, and their choices may reflect that. So whenever you read a chart, always ask, has this person's sun matured yet? Because until it does, identity, ego, father issues, and even authority struggles will show up in more unpredictable ways. After 22, the sun knows how to shine, and the person starts to walk in their Dharma with more clarity and strength. Next up in this series, we'll explore the moon and how its emotional maturity around age 24 shapes how we feel, nurture, and bond. Planet Maturity Part 2, the moon. Now let's move to the next in our planetary maturity series, the moon. If the sun is about our identity and purpose, the moon is all about emotions, instincts, comfort, and connection. And here's the key. The moon matures at 24 years of age. What does that really mean in the chart? Emotionally, most of us are still figuring out who we are well into our early 20s. We might feel moody, impulsive, overly sensitive, or even disconnected from our emotional needs. But after 24, the emotional body, ruled by the moon, starts to stabilize. You begin to understand what nurtures you, how you handle emotional highs and lows, and most importantly, what security really means for you. Let's take an example. Suppose someone has the moon in the 7th house, the house of relationships. Before 24, they might jump into relationships too quickly, get emotionally attached, or struggle with codependency. But after the moon matures, there's a shift. They start to become more emotionally self-aware in partnerships. They don't just look for someone to complete them. They seek emotional balance and mutual support. Now, if the moon is in the 4th house, its natural home, it might give emotional richness from early life. But even then, the full maturity only kicks in after 24. The person learns to handle emotional intensity more gracefully. They become a source of comfort for others, a true nurturer, not just someone who needs nurturing. And the sign matters too. Let's say the moon is in Scorpio, its debilitation sign. That placement can make emotions feel overwhelming or even secretive early in life. You might see emotional control issues, possessiveness, or difficulty in trusting others. But after 24, that Scorpio moon can evolve into deep emotional intelligence. A person who understands emotional undercurrents and can help others navigate through emotional storms. If it's a Taurus moon, exalted and steady, the person might already have emotional grounding, but maturity still sharpens their ability to provide emotional strength to others without becoming emotionally rigid. The moon also rules motherhood, nurturing, and subconscious behavior. So before 24, patterns from childhood tend to dominate. But post-maturity, you get more distance from those early imprints. You begin to choose how you respond rather than just react. For example, someone with moon in the 12th house may feel emotionally isolated early on, but after 24, they start embracing solitude as nourishing instead of painful. They learn the power of emotional retreat. In counseling, knowing someone's moon hasn't matured yet helps you understand why they might still be fluctuating emotionally, struggling with anxiety, or feeling easily ungrounded. It's not a flaw. It's part of the moon's developmental arc. So if you're reading for someone younger than 24 or reflecting on your own chart, just know emotional responses are still evolving. The moon will take its time, but when it matures, it brings a calm knowing. You begin to own your emotional landscape, and in doing so, you become the moon for others, a source of calm, comfort, and connection. Next, we'll look at Mars, the inner warrior, and how its maturation at age 28 changes how we handle power, anger, and courage. Planet Maturity Part 3. Now let's talk about Mars, the raw, untamed energy within us. If the moon is about how we feel, then Mars is about how we act. It governs our drive, courage, passion, anger, and even how we defend or assert ourselves. And Mars reaches full maturity at 28 years of age. So what does this really mean in the chart? Up until 28, Mars is still in training. It's the young soldier who's learning when to strike, when to hold back, and how to channel power without burning everything down. Before that age, you'll often see impulsive decisions, intense anger outbursts, or sometimes the opposite, suppressed anger and fear of confrontation. Let's take someone with Mars in the 3rd house, a natural placement for courage and self-assertion. Before age 28, they may pick fights unnecessarily or feel the urge to constantly prove themselves to siblings or peers. But after 28, Mars settles down into confidence. That person now channels energy into skill building, communication, or leadership without feeling the need to dominate. Now, if Mars is in the 7th house, which deals with relationships, this can get interesting. Early life relationships might feel combative, passion might be mistaken for conflict, or partnerships might be filled with push-pull dynamics. But once Mars matures, the person learns to co-create with strength. They understand the balance between asserting themselves and cooperating. What if Mars is in Cancer, where it's debilitated? Before 28, this can look like passive aggression, inconsistent action, or fear of confrontation. But after maturity, Mars in Cancer becomes emotionally intelligent in how it handles power. The person learns to act from a place of emotional awareness rather than reaction. On the other hand, Mars in Aries or Scorpio, its own signs, may express power early and boldly. But even then, full maturity at 28 adds strategic thinking to raw action. They don't just rush in, they move with calculated intensity. Mars also represents sexual energy, athleticism, ambition, and risk-taking. So before 28, you might see overexertion, burnout, or even physical injuries from impulsive behavior. But after Mars matures, people often learn to pace themselves. They still go after their goals, but with direction and endurance. This maturity age is especially crucial in career development. If someone is under 28 and feeling frustrated about not finding their life's path, I always check their Mars. It tells me they're still discovering how they want to apply their energy, how they deal with challenges, and what they're truly willing to fight for. So remember, Mars matures at 28. That's the age when your inner warrior finds rhythm. You no longer fight just for survival. You fight with purpose, with focus, and with mastery. Next, we'll look at Mercury, the planet of the mind, and what happens when it matures at 32. Because if Mars is how we act, Mercury is how we think, learn, and express. Planet Maturity Part 4, Mercury. Now let's step into the world of Mercury, the planet of intellect, communication, learning, and adaptability. Mercury is like the inner student, analyst, and communicator rolled into one. And while it's often quick and witty right from childhood, it actually matures at 32 years of age. That might come as a surprise. You'd think Mercury, being the most agile and clever, would settle early. But here's the secret. Before 32, Mercury is still gathering data. It's curious, expressive, and smart, but it hasn't yet developed the maturity to apply knowledge with discernment. After 32, Mercury begins to speak wisdom, not just information. Let's say someone has Mercury in the 10th house, the house of career and public communication. Before 32, they might be experimenting with different career paths, switching roles, or trying out various communication styles, often brilliant but scattered. After maturity, their voice becomes authoritative. They become a skilled strategist, a powerful speaker, or a leader who communicates with clarity and impact. Now, if Mercury is in the 12th house, the house of the subconscious and hidden knowledge, they may struggle early in life with overthinking, confusion, or communication anxiety. But post-32, something shifts. They begin tapping into intuition, writing deeply, or even working in healing and spiritual communication. Mercury becomes the bridge between the conscious and the mystical. What about Mercury in Pisces, its debilitation sign? This placement can make the thinking process cloudy or too imaginative early on. But after maturity, it gains creative genius. The person learns to structure intuition into poetry, design, or soulful storytelling. That once scattered Mercury becomes a wellspring of subtle, artistic intelligence. And in Gemini or Virgo, its own signs, Mercury is strong from early life. These natives often seem mentally sharp and communicative right from school days. But true depth arrives post-32. That's when cleverness becomes insight and multitasking becomes mastery. Mercury also governs trade, education, networking, negotiation, and decision-making. So before 32, people with a prominent Mercury may hop between ideas, overanalyze, or face indecision. After maturity, they streamline their thoughts. They know when to speak, when to listen, and what not to say. They become excellent mediators, teachers, or business people who can read the room and think on their feet. And emotionally, Mercury matures in how it processes emotions through logic. Before maturity, it may dismiss feelings or try to rationalize too much. But post-32, Mercury learns to integrate, to think clearly without suppressing the emotional undercurrent. So if you're working with someone in their 20s struggling with indecision or mental restlessness, check their Mercury. It hasn't quite ripened. But after 32, the mind becomes a more stable ally, articulate, perceptive, and much less likely to get lost in its own loops. Up next is Jupiter, the wise guru of the Grahas, who matures much earlier at just 16. And that tells us something profound about when wisdom can begin to bloom. Stay tuned. Planet Maturity Part 5, Jupiter. Now let's move to Jupiter, the planet of wisdom, expansion, higher knowledge, faith, and fortune. Jupiter is the guru, the teacher, and the philosopher among the Grahas. And interestingly, Jupiter matures very early, at just 16 years of age. This early maturity is quite telling. While other planets like Mars or Mercury take time to stabilize, Jupiter's energy, when prominent in a chart, often shows up as a natural sense of morality, generosity, or understanding of Dharma, even in the teenage years. It's not about being academically brilliant necessarily. It's about having an innate compass of what is right, just, or meaningful. Take a chart where Jupiter is placed in the 9th house, the house of higher learning, Dharma, and mentors. Such a person might start showing interest in philosophy, religion, or guiding others even before turning 16. They may be the teenager offering advice to adults, or feeling drawn to spiritual questions, while their peers are more externally focused. Now, if Jupiter is in the 5th house, the house of intelligence and creative expression, this could manifest as a precocious child with a rich imagination and a naturally positive mindset. They may be wise beyond their years, often optimistic, and generous in how they express themselves. Let's also consider the opposite case. Jupiter in the 6th house. Before maturity, it might make the person feel like they're struggling to find their voice or their path. But by 16, there's a shift. Jupiter's maturity can bring a sudden understanding of how to serve others with wisdom, how to work through problems with grace, or even how to handle enemies with dignity. If Jupiter is in Capricorn, its debilitation sign, the early years may feel like a clash between optimism and harsh reality. But post-maturity, even a debilitated Jupiter can shine with grounded wisdom. The person learns how to work within limitations and still grow. They develop a practical, experience-based spirituality. One unique thing about Jupiter's early maturity is that it gives people a strong sense of belief systems or life philosophy right from adolescence. Even if life changes those beliefs later, the core faith, the desire to grow and understand, is already set. And Jupiter governs more than just knowledge. It also rules children, wealth, marriage and women's charts, and overall grace. So a mature Jupiter often blesses individuals with a positive mindset, abundance, and supportive mentors early in life. Their decisions, even if naive, are often made with good intentions. For counselors, it's useful to look at Jupiter when working with teenagers. If Jupiter is well placed, it's a powerful anchor, a sign that this young person already carries some karmic wisdom. If it's afflicted, it's a cue to nurture that belief in themselves and the world around them. Jupiter's early maturity reminds us that wisdom isn't always about age. It's about clarity of heart and the ability to see life as a learning path. And by 16, this giant of the solar system starts offering its gifts, guidance, grace, and the expansion of both inner and outer horizons. Next, we'll explore Venus, the planet of beauty, love, and connection, and how its maturity at 25 reshapes how we relate to others and ourselves. Planet Maturity Part 6, Venus. Now we arrive at Venus, the planet of love, beauty, relationships, creativity, and pleasure. Venus is the heart's desire, the longing for connection, harmony, and aesthetic fulfillment, and Venus reaches full maturity at 25 years of age. That's a powerful threshold. Around 25, people often experience a shift in how they relate, not just romantically, but socially and creatively. Before Venus matures, relationships can be emotionally reactive, overly idealistic, or even driven by superficial attraction. But after 25, there's more awareness. What kind of love do I really want? What am I willing to give in return? Let's say Venus is in the 7th house, the classic house of partnerships. Before 25, this placement can draw someone into intense relationships, sometimes too soon or too fast. There may be a need to feel loved, to feel secure. But once Venus matures, this energy becomes more discerning. The person starts choosing partnerships based on alignment, shared values, and mutual growth, not just chemistry. Now, if Venus is in the 5th house, linked to romance and creativity, early expressions might involve dramatic love affairs or a search for admiration. But post-25, creativity deepens. Love becomes more about shared joy, children, or artistic expression. Venus finds fulfillment not in attention, but in connection. And if Venus is in Virgo, where it's debilitated, the journey is especially layered. Early on, there may be self-criticism, difficulty accepting affection, or overanalyzing emotions. But after maturity, Venus in Virgo can become beautifully refined, someone who expresses love through service, detail, and genuine care. The aesthetic becomes grounded in simplicity, not show. Venus also governs wealth, luxury, style, and our sense of taste. Before 25, we might splurge impulsively, chase trends, or value external validation. But once Venus matures, the person often finds their signature style. They understand what brings true comfort, pleasure, and fulfillment, and they stop needing to impress others. Another overlooked angle is self-worth. Venus represents not just how we love others, but how we love ourselves. And before 25, that's still being formed. The person may measure their value through how others treat them. But after Venus matures, they begin to source that worth from within, often through a mix of self-expression, emotional intelligence, and the ability to create beauty or peace in their environment. In women's charts especially, Venus plays a key role in defining how one relates to femininity and receptivity. And for everyone, a matured Venus at 25 brings a refinement of desire. It's the transition from what I think I want to what deeply satisfies me. So when you see someone at a crossroads in love or struggling with relationships around 23 or 24, know that Venus is on the cusp of maturation. Things might feel unstable or confusing, but it's often a sacred time of emotional pruning. By 25, Venus begins to blossom with clarity and grace. Next, we'll dive into Saturn, the slow, wise taskmaster who matures at 36. And with Saturn, it's not just about maturity, it's about karmic responsibility and the kind of self-mastery that changes the game completely. Planet Maturity, Part 7. Now we come to Saturn, the slowest moving and most misunderstood planet in Vedic astrology. Saturn, or Shani, is the planet of karma, discipline, time, responsibility, structure, and endurance. And true to its nature, Saturn takes its time. It matures only at 36 years of age. Why 36? Because Saturn teaches us through experience, not shortcuts. Until that age, Saturn is still testing us, showing where we feel limited, where we avoid responsibility, or where fear and self-doubt quietly run the show. But once Saturn matures, it's like the karmic fog clears. We begin to see what we're here to build, sustain, and contribute. Not for approval, but because it's ours to carry. Take Saturn in the 10th house, a placement linked to career and public duty. Before 36, this person may feel blocked, undervalued, or constantly tested in their professional life. They might work harder than others, but see slower results. But post-maturity, the rewards begin to show. Suddenly, their consistent effort starts gaining recognition. They become authorities in their field, not because they chase status, but because they earned it. Now imagine Saturn in the 4th house, the home, emotional security, and mother. Early life may feel emotionally cold or overly strict. The person might struggle to feel at home within themselves. But after Saturn matures, they often take full ownership of their emotional world. They stop looking for external safety and start creating internal stability. In Capricorn or Aquarius, Saturn's own signs, maturity may arrive with a sense of natural responsibility. These individuals may feel like old souls even when young, but still, post-36, their vision sharpens. They gain the patience to lead without forcing, to build without burnout. And in Cancer or Leo, where Saturn feels uncomfortable, early years can bring emotional suppression or self-worth issues tied to authority figures. But once Saturn matures, even these placements bloom. The person learns to lead with humility, to feel safe in vulnerability, and to take responsibility for their own healing journey. Saturn also governs longevity, boundaries, karma, and life lessons. Its delays are never denials. They're shaping tools. Before 36, we might resist commitment, feel burdened by duties, or experience fear of failure. But once Saturn matures, something beautiful happens. We stop avoiding our Dharma. We stop waiting for life to get easier and start getting stronger instead. Saturn's maturity is also the key moment when we shift from reacting to responding. We become less reactive to judgment, less ruled by fears of inadequacy. We begin to work with time instead of against it. We accept that meaningful things take time, and we start valuing stability over quick success. So if you're reading a chart for someone in their late 20s or early 30s, and they feel like life is full of delays, limitations, or weighty responsibilities, it's Saturn at work. And it's not a punishment, it's the pruning before the flowering. By 36, Saturn's presence softens, not because life becomes easier, but because you become stronger. And that's when true mastery begins. Up next, the mysterious Rahu, the north node of the moon, who matures at 42, unlocking the karmic obsessions, worldly ambitions, and illusions that define our midlife evolution. Planet Maturity, Part 8. Now we enter the shadowy domain of Rahu, the north node of the moon. Unlike the visible grahas, Rahu is a Chaya graha, a shadow planet, but make no mistake, its impact is deep, intense, and karmically loaded. And in Vedic astrology, Rahu matures at 42 years of age. That's important, because until 42, Rahu's energy tends to be raw, consuming, and sometimes destabilizing. It often brings obsession, ambition, confusion, rebellion, or a strong craving for something just out of reach. But once Rahu matures, those desires begin to make more sense. The illusions settle, and a more refined purpose starts emerging from the chaos. Let's take Rahu in the 10th house, the house of career and social status. Before 42, this person may chase prestige, recognition, or unconventional paths to success. They might break rules, change careers, or seek shortcuts. But once Rahu matures, that same person becomes a powerful innovator or industry disruptor, someone who understands how to work the system ethically, not just bypass it. Now imagine Rahu in the first house, tied to identity and self-image. Early in life, this can create confusion about who am I really? The person may try on multiple personas, shift appearances, or seek attention in erratic ways. But post-42, there's a quiet settling. The identity stops being performative. It becomes magnetic. The person learns to lead without the need for external validation. And if Rahu is in the 7th house, partnerships can feel karmic, dramatic, or filled with obsession before maturity. But after 42, there's more wisdom in how the person relates. They become less reactive and more open to partnerships based on growth, not fantasy or control. Now, what about the sign? Rahu in Taurus or Gemini, its friendly signs, tends to manifest more constructively even in youth, in communication, finance, or material growth. But in Scorpio or Sagittarius, the person may initially struggle with instability, over-philosophizing, or emotional extremes. After Rahu matures, even these intense placements transform into spiritual depth or intellectual mastery. One of Rahu's major themes is worldly illusion. It can create a hunger for fame, power, money, exotic experiences, and it's not always grounded. Before 42, Rahu can make a person chase things without knowing why. But once matured, the very same Rahu becomes a channel for purposeful disruption, innovation, and expansion beyond boundaries. In many charts, Rahu acts like a karmic amplifier. If it's conjunct a planet like Venus or Mercury, it can exaggerate beauty, speech, or desire. But before maturity, this can be unstable or misdirected. After 42, the person gains clarity. What do I actually want to amplify, and why? Emotionally, Rahu matures us by first overwhelming us. But by 42, we start detaching from the need to constantly be seen, win, or escape. We find grounded ways to pursue the Rahu desire, whether it's spiritual growth, technological innovation, or breaking generational patterns. So when you see someone in their 30s going through massive life shifts, burning bridges, or chasing more, consider that Rahu is still cooking. And by 42, the obsession often transforms into direction. It's the age when our karmic hunger becomes karmic mastery. Next, we'll complete the series with Ketu, the South Node, the one who lets go, detaches, and guides us toward liberation after 48. If Rahu is what we chase, Ketu is what we release. Planet Maturity Part 9. We now arrive at the final graha in our planetary maturity series, Ketu, the South Node of the Moon. While Rahu is the head without a body, always desiring, always consuming, Ketu is the headless body, disconnected from craving, concerned only with detachment, moksha, and deeper spiritual insight. And fittingly, Ketu matures the latest, at 48 years of age. That's no coincidence. If Rahu is about the material journey and karmic hunger, Ketu is about the inner journey and karmic resolution. Before 48, Ketu often manifests as confusion, isolation, withdrawal, or even a quiet dissatisfaction with worldly success. But after maturity, something profound happens. Ketu reveals its spiritual wisdom. Let's say Ketu is in the 12th house, the natural house of moksha, solitude, and the subconscious. Before 48, this might show up as escapism, sleep issues, or difficulty processing emotions. But after Ketu matures, this person can become a profound mystic, a deep meditator, or someone who guides others through psychological and spiritual depths with uncanny clarity. Now consider Ketu in the 2nd house, the house of speech and values. Early life may involve speech anxiety, financial instability, or a feeling of being disconnected from family traditions. But after 48, this person often sheds attachment to material definitions of self-worth. They become minimalist, value silence over noise, and speak only when it truly matters. If Ketu is conjunct a planet, say the moon, it can create emotional detachment, anxiety, or a lack of nurturing in early years. But after Ketu matures, that same conjunction can become a spiritual superpower. The person may develop strong psychic awareness, emotional independence, or profound intuitive gifts. Ketu in Scorpio, Pisces, or Sagittarius tends to bring mystical tendencies early, but without grounding. Maturity brings balance, the ability to walk between worlds. In more material signs like Taurus or Leo, Ketu can create a subtle push to let go of ego, wealth, or validation. That release doesn't come easily before 48, but post-maturity, it's often life-changing. Ketu also governs past life karma, spiritual knowledge, severance, and inner purification. Before it matures, it can make people feel like something is missing, a quiet void, or a sense of been there, done that. This can cause withdrawal, restlessness, or rejection of worldly pleasures, even if the person doesn't understand why. But after maturity, Ketu teaches the most powerful lesson. You don't need to have it all to feel complete. In counseling or chart readings, if someone is approaching their late 40s and feeling a strange pull towards simplicity, meditation, minimalism, or even solitude, Ketu's maturity is at play. It's often the phase where people leave the rat race, seek their soul purpose, or start to teach others from lived spiritual insight rather than theory. So while Ketu is often feared for creating losses or disconnection, its maturity brings sacred clarity. After 48, many people no longer chase what they used to. They aren't bitter, they're liberated. They begin to live lightly, with intention, and in alignment with something much greater than the material world. And that brings us to the end of the planetary maturity journey. From the blazing selfhood of the sun at 22, all the way to the mystical release of Ketu at 48. Each graha unfolds at its own pace, sculpting different chapters of our inner and outer evolution. The real power of this knowledge is not just in prediction, but in understanding when and how we truly come into our own.